How do you deal with people who, you try to tell them what they could do, what they should do, and they just keep on focusing like what they did and trying to rationalize like what they're doing instead
Is it
of
your
trying to
faction?
listen.
That's with
Uh,
your team?
yeah, it's my team.
So
This is on top.
sorry,
Yeah,
I'll let Jafest answer. I was about to take over, but because I have my own opinion, but I'm curious what Jafest has to
Yeah,
say
yeah,
about
yeah.
that.
So there are a few questions to be answered. What do you mean by big ego? So it's kind of difficult for you to exactly lead, for you to think about what kind of, well, let's just say you want them to have certain conclusion about the situation. Yeah, maybe they're not right. You think, oh well, this is how you're supposed to do that, but they're not just responding correctly. Yeah, they basically thinking, oh, this is how you're supposed to do that. Or like sometimes people, especially when we lower rank, yeah, whenever you just have the coaching, anybody who's coaching at he's just plat rank, but they're higher celestial rank or maybe eternity rank. Yeah, they're not responding to your feedback too well, not too good. Yeah, let's put it this way. And that's how you
yeah,
know this is they have big ego. That's what you mean by that, basically. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, is there anything you tried to do recently?
Yeah, I try to mix it up. Like I try to before I was like a little bit more stern, where it was like, this is the obvious right decision. You're kind of doing this, which is like kind of snowballing into you missing some real value. But like really you should be playing more passive here, play here, and then you look for these targets. And then they would rationalize, they'll just be like, well, like I did this because of this. And it's like, well, I hear that, but it's like, not the right thing. And so that's what I was doing at first. And now I've kind of transitioned to more like being more friendly of like just positive enforcement rather than negative enforcement of like
Right.
when they do the right thing. I'm like, you need to try to do this more, try to do that, like instead of doing, going over, missing value here, really try to stick to these plays and more positive reinforcement rather than trying to find mistakes and fix mistakes.
Hmm.
And it has some success, but, like, they still, make those big plays, and it's like, I can't even call them out for it because, they're just not gonna take it the right way. They're gonna get into, you know I tell them that they made a mistake here, and then they wanna waste my time for 10, 15 minutes explaining why they did that. Well, it's like, I don't care why you did that, like, you need to do it this way instead.
Right. Right. So, see, what are you trying to do here is basically is instead of fixing their decisions a lot of times, which is kind of the core problem, a lot of the times, yeah, let's just kind of follow this model. What you have here, you have to do that. X is your action. Okay. And the action usually comes after the certain thoughts you have to just make sure they change within their play. Yeah, maybe they're just the way the mindset they go in the game. Maybe there are certain things they're trying to focus on and such. Yeah, and you straight away trying to
Mhm.
fix the action, which can be okay, especially when you're giving feedback to more novices. Yeah, if we just have some new player, there has to be more direct feedback usually, but a lot of the times it's still important for us to think about their decisions, like how do you solve this core problem. Yeah, because they think that they have to do this because of that and that, and they just cannot change their decision. Yeah, and that's why the action can be changed as well. And to fix decisions, well, what do you think there has to be done? So that is something we talked about in our first session as well, kind of just on the focus feedback. A lot of times you tell them, well, you have to stay there. Yeah, you have to take, I don't know, this off angle, or you have to stay main, you have to ult and such, right?
Mhm.
But they still a lot of times put the first off they put the attention at the certain places where you don't know. Yeah, so like decisions is a lot about attention, so their attention might be on the things you don't know. So to get to know where the attention is, what do you think you could be doing? Is there anything you could be maybe asking the questions or just thinking about to make sure you understand where their attention is at? What's your opinion?
Yeah. I kinda What's the question? Is there something that I could be doing to, like, just
Yeah,
check where their attention's at?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I could, like, pause, a VOD review and be like, "Well, what do you think?" should like what do you think? What are you focused on? I could ask them like what are pretty much just yeah. What are you thinking?
Yeah, because this is where I think it's going to be important for you to actually ask the question why. Yeah, it might seem like maybe not as time efficient, but to be honest, because a lot of the sessions it's repeating over and over again, especially if I'm coaching a team for the long period of time. If we do not explain why certain thing works this way, it's going to be difficult for the players to respond to the feedback. Yeah, and you're not just telling them why we do X, yeah, you just something, yeah, you also just explaining and trying to think about where the attention is at and showing them what's good about where the attention is at, what's bad, and thinking about more helpful ways for us to put our attention so it's going to be easier for you to fix something. So for example, I have the goal player and they tell me, well, my team is fighting here and I just want a position in, well, maybe near some sort of cover, trying to take an angle. We talked about there was recent session in the Magic, we talked about that, well, you could be taking flanks more, right? But then they make a decision to just go in really, really deep and well, they done some correct decisions going from the flank, maybe even just trying to use cover, right? But then later on, because their attention has been on the wrong things, so for us it's been maybe they're not looking at the kill feed as much, or maybe they're not pressing tab and checking for what's available, what our ultimate's available, and because they don't do that, and you also don't know maybe sometimes if they do that or not, you have to check, then they make the wrong decision. Yeah, so you gotta understand attention, okay, and maybe find more helpful ways for them to put the attention in the right places. That's one take. Yeah, there are a lot of smaller things as well, a lot of layers to it, but I would start with that, kind of follow the model well. Attention, just put it this way, why, explain why, and think where they put attention, and then we're gonna be putting, well, just figure out where attention could be as well. So it's solved. I would just put it this way for now. Yeah, maybe there's something else as well. What else? I'm thinking about the other points. Well, sometimes players have big ego. We obviously, it's a lot about asking questions. Yeah, how do you ask questions? Are you actually have those kind of power questions in a way? Because that is something what we'll talk about later on. There are type of questions where it's closed questions, kind of the answer yes and no, or maybe there are open questions which we'll get to. Yeah, you just get them to think, and if they think and you let them figure out the play but on their own, then they do not actually think that it's you telling them how to do something, which is actually like, imagine you playing ranked and some player, they just tell you, yeah, can you just do this and that? Yeah, it's a lot of times it's annoying for the players, right? They become more defensive and they're not responding to the feedback correctly. Yeah, maybe you also just experience that as a player. I've been grinding top 10 on Overwatch, and somebody tells me, can you do this and that? Sometimes I get more defensive in a way, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just important that let them figure out stuff with the questions. That's how I would go about that.
Don't just tell them do that.
Yeah, because they will be more defensive if we just be more direct. Sometimes it has to be solved. Let's say, I'm thinking about something like being more direct. Well, novices, sometimes maybe you're giving feedback between the rounds. If I'm coaching collegiate, I give them feedback between the rounds. Maybe sometimes I can be more direct as well. There's no time for more problem solving questions. Yeah, let them figure out stuff well, more direct. But I do that through the lens of what we discussed before. Guys, we playing Dive versus Brawl. What do we do? Yeah, you have to do this and that, reminding them about the direction. Yeah, being more direct, right? But we already done the homework before in our self reviews, so what reviews. So it can be that, for example. I don't know. It's just parts of that. This is what comes to mind right away. I'm curious. What do you think, Ambi? Is there anything else to add, maybe?
I think that's a really good explanation. I was curious if you actually have a background in this, because a lot of the stuff that you're saying is stuff that I take into my coaching as well, using open-ended questions. Because I have a social work background, so I'm in school for social work, and that's something that they teach technique-wise is making sure that you're using a lot of open-ended questions, because open-ended questions, first off, it isn't as directive, and a lot of people don't like being as directive. People don't like being told what to do, kind of like Jafest said.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
so when you're asking things, not only are you leading them to the conclusion that you have in your mind anyways, right? Like you know the point you're trying to get across, but you kind of let them figure it out themselves, if that makes sense. If you're asking them
Yeah.
questions and you have something in mind, you're letting them explore it. Not only does that let them um kind of come to their own conclusion, it gives them a sense of accomplishment when they figure it out because they're like, "Oh, that makes sense, right?" Like,
Yeah.
"Man, I'm so smart," right? And that's kind of what they do in counseling too is they get you to explore things and then they get you to come to your own conclusions. And also what that does is if that thing doesn't work, they can take self accountability for it and modify it. Whereas if you tell them to do something and they do it and it doesn't work, they can look at you, right? They can be like, okay, well, you
Yeah,
told me that
make
would
a
work and
blame.
that didn't work, right? Whereas if
Yeah.
they come up with it themselves, it's a level of accountability, right?
Yes, exactly.
Um, and it removes guilt, etc. And one thing I was thinking when you were mentioning that you're coaching your own team, and I've been very open with my team about this. I said I can give us slight pointers, blah blah blah, et cetera, but I don't think I'm going to be a good dedicated coach for the team. And the reason for that is when you're playing on a team of people, I believe everybody is a peer, right? Like they're all peers. You're all on the same level. You're all like there's a mutual respect for one another when you're playing on a team. And so
Yeah.
when you put yourself in a coach position, in a way, a coach position is a position of power over others, right? Like in one way or another, they look up to you. When someone buys a coach, they have a certain level of respect for you, right?
Hmm.
Because they think that you can help them with their problem. And I think in a team setting, that's not good because a lot of the times you want to be on like a equal level with everybody, right? So I think like coaching your own team can be very difficult, and that's what I said to my team. I said I can give us pointers and this and that, but just know like I'm gonna have my own personal bias. I'm not gonna lie, I buy other coaches. Why? Because I have an ego, and I couldn't coach myself correctly because I don't have that non-biased insight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
Especially when you player, like I've been much more biased when I've been grinding non-stop. Now I'm playing much
Mhm.
less and I'm less biased, I would say. I'm just kind of observing most of the plays and just making sure I save the examples. I show here and that, well, this is the concept. Maybe this is how players do that as well. Kind of give you perspectives. A lot of times when I've been, I think when I've been getting coached, it's also been difficult for me to respond to feedback exactly too, because I'm like, yeah, this is how the game works. What are you thinking? Like I'm top 10 rank
Yeah,
here,
yeah, yeah.
and yeah, I'm just you giving me like this and that solution, but eventually I figure out a game can be solved multiple ways, and it's just
It's all theory.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. Really interesting though. But yeah, I think this is really good. Okay. I was thinking to just direct more our conversation more direct to the questions and well whatever we also gonna maybe some questions you guys gonna have I will answer. Let me see. I think Sam you asked the questions. What's the process of coming up with the new team strategies? And more personal question, do you have a background teaching in real life? I don't have a background in teaching, but I've been coaching for what 7 years now. I think been reading books, courses, taking that as well. Well, just talking to other coaches and just making sure I get the feedback from them. I think there's a lot for me to learn still and be effective. Even with the principles I share, sometimes I'm not doing the best, to be honest. I think everybody is the same exactly. Well, nobody's perfect. That's what I wanted to say. Yeah, that you can always improve at something. The first question: what's the process of coming up with the new team strategies? I usually recommend to figure out your team. Just understand what your team is about. Know the players. Know what they're comfortable with. Know what they like to do, don't like to do. Know their routine, and go from there. You again don't want to just come up. Oh, guys, can we suddenly run this cool composition? That sort of stuff meta like some coaches would suggest. Yeah, maybe good short-term solution, and maybe you'll see them getting good success, but the long-term is at the best for them as a players too. Not sure. Usually what I had the best results with as well is just if we have understand the team pretty well and then we figure out stuff together kind of be more on the same page with them and think what works, I usually come up with, first off, ask for comfort picks. What kind of things you're comfortable with? Perfect. Okay, how we can make it work? Have those players establish compositions around what's strong, and then add complementing characters as well. So I'll just put it this way: strong characters, okay, and characters complementing plus characters complementing those characters are gonna be really good. But how do you understand what strong is based on the comfort pick? Okay, so strong is gonna be comfort pick, and also it's gonna be about the meta, obviously, but the lower the rank of the players, the less meta means, and that's why I pay attention to the rank of the players as well. I think a lot of times people just chase the strong character picks, they swap non-stop, and it's giving them not enough value. There's another there's another type of thinking. Some players, they try to counter too much, and again, it's not working because they're not solving their own win condition. They're not thinking where they need to put the attention at, so they actually solve the problem. You kind of play around our own win condition. It's kind of thinking, how do we win instead of how to prevent the enemy from winning. A lot of people, they fall into this problem. They just trying to figure out, how do we stop the enemy team. I remember, if you guys know, there's one of the coaches, their name is Bilo. They coached Overwatch League quite frequently. Yeah, they've been there for a long time, and one of the things they told us is that the one time they actually knew the entire rollout of the enemy team. They knew exactly what's gonna happen, and they've been thinking about how to just counter the enemy team so much, how to prevent them from winning, so they forgot how to win. Yeah, so like think about how to, well, let's just put it, our win conditions. It's gonna be really important, and to figure out that, well, biggest thing is the planning. Start with the planning, and then we can go from there. Okay, also forgot strong characters, and it's comfort pick and also meta. Yeah, so it's gonna be written. I will send all the summary to you as well, all the notes. Spalama good. Yeah, he's really good, right? I think. Let me see, is there anything else? How does your approach to coaching change depending on the level of the player you're teaching? Well, to be honest with you, with newer players, we like to dive in at the basic principles a little bit more. I just want to make sure the concepts, maybe there is something simple, who someone takes for granted, like off angle. Yeah, we understand what is that. Or maybe sometimes I also use the terms like kill zone, or maybe even awareness, game sense, and all of those small, well, you have to break down the topics. You have to just explain what that means exactly a little bit more. And I think the questions is also important part with teaching the new players, but sometimes also just being more direct. But it just, for me, to be honest, I still lean towards asking questions. It's just what I heard sometimes as well. It's being more direct as well. You maybe can't do that, but then the more the player, the more expertise they have, yeah, the more they learn the game, then usually you able to ask more and more questions, do more problem solving things. This is how usually it goes, I think. Okay, I try to stay away, ask questions, and let them figure out answer for all levels. Yeah, exactly. But I don't know if there is a bad approach for either end of the skill spectrum. Yeah, I see. Well, this is exactly. Well, I'm trying to think. Is there anything else to add? Yeah, I think we answered a lot of this already when we're trying to figure out stuff for all levels. But I know. Yeah, maybe I think for the most part, what we mentioned here is going to be really good. I will also get to the other points. I wrote down few bullet points above, so we'll talk about more the questions. I think a lot of that will be useful. Let's just kind of go back to this list here. Maybe just refer to the previous masterclass. Well, first off, what we went over before. Maybe some of the guys, maybe anyone who's going to be watching the recording, or just you guys, if you want to also rewatch the previous masterclass, it's been on focus feedback, and we talked about just a lot about the questions. How do you ask questions? How do you also make sure the student will stay focused on the task? And there have been mostly those two things which we got out of. Our previous conversation has been learn how to use questioning, feedback, questions, and learning how to give feedback without cognitive overload as well. It's been big theme. We will also keep that in mind, because sometimes when we give feedback, there's just so many things to work on, and that's why even with those sessions, and I understand. Even Lucas told me, well, sneak in as much value as possible in this. I'm still trying to kind of direct conversation to something, so it's going to be easy to digest and understand later, I guess. But yeah, we'll see. All right, I'm thinking let's just talk about the main objectives I wanted to discuss. A lot of it is going to be connected to the questioning, but first off, just to make sure you can ask the right questions and make sure you able to give student feedback in a proper way. Talking about the relationship with the student, it just, for me, my bullet points are: how do you keep track on students' progress? How do you build trust? And also drills, tasks for the students. There's where there's going to be a lot about the questions, and think about the exercises, what they can do on their own, maybe just after the session, maybe there's something, the way you give feedback before the sessions as well, stuff like that. It's just, for me, going to be two main things to discuss. Do you guys actually have any questions just regarding this so far? Like, or like maybe think about the points you thinking about when we're talking about the relationship with the student. How do you usually keep track on students' progress? Maybe let's start with that. I'll just maybe direct the question to this. What do you guys think? What do you usually do to keep the student accountable, to see their progress? What are you doing? Maybe Sam, I see that you've been typing. Maybe you can type a few things you're doing, and
I can talk for a minute. I tend to when I do the low reload weekly stuff, I spent the last couple ones, I try to stay very friendly with them. That's for the most part, trying to keep their attention there of people coming back. So I stay in the call for like, an hour or two afterwards, talking and chatting to people and stuff. They tend to come back a lot, and even if they don't, I'll like, with certain people, like Gun, for instance, I tend to talk to Gun in DMs often.
Oh yeah.
Helping him with like, he's one of the students in there, but I help him out with like, he'll send me a VOD, he'll ask me questions, and I always make sure people know that I'm like, I'm down to ask questions. Ping me in the server, DM me, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, I think I probably should be like maybe more proactive, keeping up with people. I know there's like a rank progress channel in the server.
Yeah.
Which I don't look at much, but I think I should.
Yeah. So being continue.
I just think I need to be more proactive. Outside of like the coaching, the like designated weekly low elo scrims, I need to be more active in the community amongst that as well. Because I know in your server, after I got my coaching from you, you have like a lot of stuff in there that you can see the progress of people. You have like, you have the reviews. I mean, look in your chat. Let me look in your server real quick.
Screen share. Yeah, it's basically this coaching reviews.
Yeah, I'll open it up. You have the coaching reviews. You even have the Overwatch bot, which says like the current ranks of the people that have their Battle.net link to their Discord. So you can see rank. So you can automatically see rank progress from people.
Yeah.
And be like, damn, this person hit masters. Nice, good stuff. You have the coaching reviews. You also have like you have a questions channel. You have a bunch of stuff like ready for that, and I'm just noticing it now, like the reason behind it. I think it's really cool.
I see, yeah, so more activity involved towards the student thinking. Maybe I would put it this way, because there's a lot of stuff you mentioned, just all of this, I would kind of keep it this way. Feel free to ask questions, more active in the server. Maybe how to give value to the student, So just overall, if I'm being really useful to the student, they feel that you care for them. I think that's great mindset to have. I would be careful with maybe the stuff you mentioned. You're staying real long with them in the call, yeah, because this is where you might be more of a friend to them later, and that's different friendship, friend to friend, and coach and player. So I would be careful with that. There definitely has to be more kind of limitations. Yeah, you have to just make sure. Okay, like this is our and what we want to get out of it. Yeah, make sure you address the objectives. Maybe this is this and that we want to work on. This is what we've been working on later, and let's also think about what are the concepts we can work on going forward. Yeah, ask a few questions and make sure the right conversation to that, because you'll obviously also want to be efficient with your time, but also make sure that they have the right direction set. Yeah, there can be multiple directions like vector. Yeah, you can go in one way where they're more friendly, just sharing some, well, kind of more talking like to you like a friend, and there's a completely another direction where they talk to you like as a coach. Yeah, so I think you have to be careful with staying a little bit too much. Yeah, and it's good that you give value. Yeah, this is really good. That's what I wanted to say. Okay, maybe is there anything what anyone else wants to say? How do you guys also just build trust with them, with the students?
I normally like to give them an idea of who I am before they buy coaching. Even at the start of a session, I like to do a brief introduction.
Yeah. Intro.
Between who I am and then getting a little bit about like their background. That way I know where they're at. Because the approach that I take to coaching is like, I find some coaches teach a lot of very similar concepts to people, regardless of what skill they're at. So I think getting an idea of where they're at, if you share, it kind of encourages them to share as well. So like, for example, when I do AIM coaching, like I do like to explain that I have only been doing AIM for about 2 years and I've already like peaked in Jade and Diamond and pushing for Masters and the Voltaic benchmarks, right? Because I think that makes it a lot less daunting for people who are trying to enter it, and then they might be more encouraged, like, oh, this guy wasn't good a few years ago too, and now he was open and honest with me. Now I can be open and honest with him, and they don't feel embarrassed or anything about their rank. And then I kind of know where they're at, and I know where to go for their coaching session and which direction to take it.
Nice. I really like it. And especially just kind of emphasizing what you guys mentioned, get to know them. Yeah, make sure that we just maybe you can even highlight this. Okay, by the way, the stream is working for you just fine. I never asked that, but yeah.
Yeah, it's working fine.
Yeah. I just there's no fancy presentation or anything. Yeah, just want to make sure you see what I'm writing so far. I'm gonna send all the notes later, but yeah, get to know them. I'll highlight that, and also how to give value. I think all of those are great things for me to just maybe add something else is just not only we sharing the experience and kind of building trust with the student in the session. I think there's a lot of work can be done before the session and after the session as well. So maybe those are the questions you can also answer. It's just what you can do before the session to make sure your relationship is on point. While getting to know them, I think this is great. If you're able to already just send some information on well, first of all, your experience, but then also just understand who they are, I think is great. For maybe anyone who is going to be watching later, any other coaches, I, for example, have form which I sent to the student to just get to know them better. It looks like this, kinda. I'm just gonna share it with you. So in here we have a lot of questions about the short-term goals, long-term goals. There's a lot of stuff they can be thinking about in terms of just what kind of things they need to improve on, what things they also good at. It's just kind of general questions. Maybe not all of that is necessary, but because they're answering that, it builds more trust. Yeah, the more they give to you, they're kind of open to share. That's great for you as a coach. You want to make sure they're more open with you, and obviously you're also getting to know them. The way they phrase something, the way they share stuff with you, it influences the way you can coach them later. Because some students, they're really talkative, they like to share a lot of things. They may be more self-critical. Some other students, they're more well, maybe close to feedback. Yeah, kind of like I think. Let me see. Sorry, your name is T. How do I pronounce it? I cannot see in the Steam mod. Sorry, is it T something? T dot dot. For me, it says that. Sorry. I just yeah, you wanna make sure that when there's students with big ego, then you also know how to address that. Yeah, prepare for some specific work with them too. But yeah, the form I think is a great way, something we can do before, and I also like to think about what we can do before the sessions between the sessions. It's like chat between the sessions. I, in my experience, would like to ask a lot of questions. What kind of things they've been working on? What do they struggle with? Yeah, again, making sure we open to just questions. Yeah, feel free to ask any questions. Tell them that that is something you guys can do. Yeah, you're always able to answer the questions. Obviously, be careful with your free time, though. I would 100% say, because for me, I'm coaching 2 games currently. There are a lot of students. It's so important to just have dedicated time when you're answering the questions, so you're not overloaded too. But yeah, that is something to keep in mind. And we also can think about the other stuff, like kind of small talk you can do to just get to know them in, well, even before in the session, not necessarily about just giving the feedback to them, right? This is how you have to do stuff. This is the concept. This is just the piece of advice I wanted to share. Yeah, this is great, but if they not trusting you in a way, yeah, because you don't have that small talk, well, in a way, for example, even something like, how are you doing today? Yeah, what the latest news? What's been on your mind? I don't know, anything like that. This makes them more open. Yeah, obviously you're not like a friend to them, but still something what allows you to build trust, and they're gonna be more responsive to feedback you give. This is what I want to say. Yeah. So what we mentioned so far: create the form, ask questions, you have to figure out why they do certain things. Okay, we already addressed that actually. Just asking the questions in terms of why they do certain things is going to be important. Yeah, fixing the decisions, we already have it in the bottom, so we'll keep that in mind. Yeah, there are definitely a lot of the other things in terms of how do you ask questions, and I don't think I'm perfect with that, to be honest, but anyway, that is something what allows you to just get them to talk, and also make sure you are leading them towards the right conversation. Yeah, maybe if we're just talking about the questions, maybe we can do that here. Let me just also write down questions. Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit more later on. Yeah, maybe any questions about just how to build trust. Yeah, maybe anything else you guys want to add? What you guys are doing so far as well? Maybe anything related to this?
Uh, yeah. It's a weird question. Could we go over like if I go through your Metafy, and can you actually VOD review me doing a VOD review, please? I want to get some feedback on my coaching itself.
Yeah, we could be doing that. Yeah, I just want to make sure. Well, do we just so we have enough time for all of that? Yeah, I might potentially.
I'll go through your Metafy for it. I just didn't know if like you'd be down to do something like that.
Oh, you talking about later, not now. Oh, sorry.
I'll
yeah.
do it. No, not now, of course. No, I'll do it later. I'll do it like a
Oh, no
private session
problem.
with you.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. However you like it, Academy or yeah, that link is also works. Just however you want it, that's okay. I'll be glad to help. There have been a few coaches as well. We talked about just how do they phrase certain things, yeah, how to give feedback, communication, especially in a team environment. So yeah, I'll be glad to help. Yeah, no problem. Just make sure you save the VOD. What we'll need is communication. It's just you here. Well, we need to exactly see the VOD, how you water you, and hear both of you in student, and should be good. Yeah, I'll be open to do that, of course. Yeah. Any other questions, maybe?
No questions. I mean, I think you explained it very well. Building trust and like being friendly.
Yeah,
I guess I'd
exactly.
be more. I don't have my own Discord for this yet, but I could see like probably like how to be more friendly with like through Discord and like kind of things maybe
Yep.
later. But I'm still on the beginning parts of that. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, yeah. This is okay. I'm thinking what if I elaborate on just how to give value. I think it's a great topic. Yeah, so maybe even thinking about all of the stuff I mentioned before, like creating the form, yeah, chat, obviously, all of those things you can do. But something you guys just think about your learn term goals. What are we trying to do in the learn term? Yeah, I definitely think if you have the place where you have all that value, such as Discord server, this is great. But also maybe if you're also able share resources, yeah, tell the students that this is where you can see the concept being implemented, or maybe this is where you see I don't know, maybe they struggle with some sort of anxiety, or maybe they struggle with getting tilted. Yeah, you can share a few resources you would recommend. I don't know, maybe something, even if it's a little bit useful to them. I think this is really, really good. Obviously, we're not expecting them to digest every piece of information, but I think because all the improvement it's all about step-by-step development. You cannot make them climb the mountain right away. Yeah, it's step-by-step improvement. Kind of just they want to see what's in front of them, make sure they do the first step and then the second, and you just wanna give them support, give them tools so they're able to do that. I think this is great. Share resources. Is there anything else? Well, I'm just thinking, well, whatever we're gonna talk about later on, obviously all of that is gonna be also connected to how do we give value. But yeah, have the place. Ideally, if you have the Discord server, this is great. I 100% recommend it. The earlier you start, the best is gonna be. I personally don't have too talkative Discord. It's more like information Discord and everything. But I have some coaching VODs uploaded. I maybe have something like Ask Me Anything channel, and I think a lot of the stuff can be improved. But at least this is one of the ways you can give value and kind of structure info. So I hopefully for some of the students it will be helpful. Should be okay. Yeah. All right. Let's move forward. Maybe seeing the other things I wanted.
For
Oh,
shared
yeah.
resources, is that like content creation? Would you think of like content creation the same as like creating shared resources? Because a lot of people nowadays want to probably watch more than read,
Yeah,
especially
exactly.
people who
Text
probably
or
yeah,
watch, yeah, videos. Okay. That's why I personally create.
especially gamer
Yeah.
these days. I feel like
Yeah.
most gamers don't read. Honestly, like, I'm a big reader. Like I'm a big reader, but whenever I tell anybody of my friends or like on my team or just over the years, like just to like read somebody, they're just like, I
Yeah,
don't
maybe
know.
not. Maybe next time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's all right. That's all right. Well,
yeah.
I personally find I don't know. It feels to me it's been always 50-50. I kind of noticed that some students they watch the materials, some students they read, and even if you're able to also create your own materials, this is great too. Yeah, this is gonna be your kind of second step to create something based on all the resources you got, and this is really good. I don't know. You can always post something on Reddit. You can always try to post something on the other social media too. I personally post some of the written stuff on the Reddit. YouTube is gonna be more video, and maybe some of the short stuff like shorts, maybe one tip for the character, one tip for this and that. You can also
Mhm.
just send it to Instagram and TikTok, but I don't know. It's just for me, because obviously there are different goals with all the content creation, but if I'm talking from the coaching perspective, I just want to find a way to give value. So the people I'm coaching, or like the players I'm coaching, they become more effective. Even though 1% effective, I don't care. It's already great. Just
Yeah.
1% there. That's good. All of that is great. Right. Let's see. The second thing is fixing bad habits, reinforcing good habits is our just the solving this, yeah, kind of drills and tasks, and also partially about the relationship with the student. And I'm thinking when we trying to fix bad habits, a lot of the times we don't want to exactly uh, explain them directly. Yeah, as we mentioned, just tell, oh, you have to do this and that, but yeah, you need to figure out why. But also, as you mentioned, all of you mentioned, yeah, figure out what they do good. That's going to be really important. We just trying to find out, oh, this is going to be really good. This is really good play. This is something you could be doing more. And I'm also thinking to just give you an example on being more direct with fixing bad habits and reinforcing good habits, you can a lot of times focus on one theme. This is what I find more useful. I will give you an example of something written. I don't think there's been anything too recent for Marvel Rivals yet, but for example, this is the player I've been coaching. They just ask for written word review. There's been just on a word review, but you don't want to pay attention to the concepts and everything I'm teaching here. It's just mostly how you do that. Usually, if you're able to focus on something specific, like the biggest theme you notice with the gameplay, the biggest problem, if you can fix that, this is great. But also find the things they're doing great within that theme too, or maybe something else, obviously, which they're doing great, let them know too. But I really like to be specific. For example, in that review, I would tell that player, well, I want to focus on your resource management, and we're going to be focusing on the nade and sleep. Yeah, and in Marvel Rivals, it's just basically two any of the skills you would pick. Yeah, for example, you play something like Thor, I would focus on how you use your dash and awaken. Yeah, maybe that. And then you give the feedback related to that themes. Obviously, there might be some connections to the other theme when you're giving them feedback on something like how to use that ability or how to use another ability. Maybe it can be how they position themselves, so maybe that can be how they just thinking about where to put their attention, maybe scout information, but it's always going to be more specific. I kind of typically going to be giving the stuff of working here, like give more direction and then share examples. I really like visuals as well. Make sure they're able to see stuff. Give them links. You can make this bigger, for example, so they see how the concept looks like. And after that, you can also give them the summary on all of that. Let me see. I just want to make sure, if we elaborate on this a little bit more. He explained them what they do good and why. Yeah, I think that's good enough. Yeah, maybe to just give you also the video format example, the same stuff. The recent session we had, I think there was one of the players, there was Magic player, if I'm not mistaken. Again, with them we kind of just focused on how to set up on the angles, just what kind of positions you have to take. Give me a second. Yeah, this actually on my channel here. There's been a lot of the also talking about the how do we practice, which I think is even more important. But yeah, anyway, it's always gonna be explain them the theme, yeah, but then later on you ask questions and just let's just put it this way. First of all, making sure that you giving them value with what they do good. You explain that. I think this is gonna be great, but also make sure you explain like this thought process, why, understand the decisions, why they do certain stuff, ask the questions, and later on you can go with giving feedback. You can give more direct feedback. For example, here we figured out in that session that this Magic player, they been not setting up properly because they've been watching one YouTuber where they told them, well, this is the best position you could take in this current spot of the map usually. For whatever reason, maybe this is somewhere they could position. But once we figured that out, you can always ask the question, more leading question, asking where they could be playing instead, because of X and Y factors. For us, it's been something like maybe where your teammates playing, or maybe there's something else. You can always make sure you give them those questions, so you will let them figure out stuff on their own, but it has to be more direct. If I want them to answer positioning wise, then ideally want to phrase the question around those principles a little bit more. We want to make sure that they will not give us some other theme we don't want to focus on yet. Let's put it this way. Because if we're focusing on positioning, but then they're telling you, oh, I could be doing this and that, there can be dozens of things the players can be doing great, but you just want to keep the conversation direct. And sometimes maybe the student, they would like to elaborate on the other theme, but I definitely think if you keep them just structured and make sure you focus on one theme and kind of tell them, well, we today let's focus on our positioning, for example, but later on we can also talk about stuff like game sense or maybe the stuff like tempo, I don't know, anything. What do you want them to discuss later? So you keep it structured on one theme. This is gonna be really great. Yeah, so this is
Like
my
in the middle of the screen, you could jump up towards a bridge at the top.
yeah.
And so he jumped up there, and so I
Okay, so sorry, I think there's been yeah, okay, now it's working. I by accident pressed the button. Okay, is everything clear for you right now? Like what I mentioned so far, or maybe any questions?
Yeah, everything's been clear, I think.
Okay, so this is gonna be for I'm
Everything
just-
good.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything at the moment. Yeah, I think this is gonna be one of the examples we'll use later on too. But yeah, now if we go forward a little bit more, I'm thinking to fix certain habit, typically we just want to replace the habit with a slightly better one. And because you cannot just jump on top of the mountain right away, I just would usually recommend see what is that next step you can make, which is slightly better behavior the student can do. For example, one of the students recently in my sessions, they told me that they play immense amount of hours. They play like 6-7 hours every day, which is really influencing their focus. It's difficult for them to just stay focused for the long period of time because of that. So how do we fix that habit? How do you replace that habit? Yeah, well, you can just make sure you decrease the playtime step by step. Well, maybe some players obviously they could drop the playtime, and with them there was kind of that problem where they had this 2 hours of playtime, for example, then they increased it to 6 hours, playing immense amount of hours. So actually they just what they wanted to get out of this, yeah, this is also the part where you figure out why they doing certain habit. Yeah, it's just we figured out when asked the question why they been doing that amount of hours, they just told me, well, I want to grind, I want to make sure I get to the highest rank possible. But then when you show them what is the problem with that, kind of explain certain ideas related to that, and just figure out together what is the best solution for them, it appeared for them that they could be just increasing the playtime instead of it being from 2 hours to 6, just make sure they increase it to 2 hours to 3, while also keeping an eye on the other things which keep them focused. Maybe there's something else they could be doing, like exercising, getting enough sleep, or maybe there's, I don't know, anything else.
I tried to do that,
Yeah.
but I missed the jump.
Oh,
So-
sorry. I think the video got okay. Now it's good. Yeah. So it's this, and I'm trying to think about anything else related to this. I think that's it for now. Maybe there's something else we can discuss later on. Or you can ask questions about that. I will be glad to answer. Now, asking questions. We mentioned open questions, and open questions is all about just not giving you the answer yes or no, but ideally just making sure they elaborate on the theme a little bit more in terms of how they could be doing certain stuff, or like why they do something, and like where they could be doing stuff. That's my take. I call this 3Ws. Usually, if you're able to just make sure they answer those questions, you just call what, when, and where something's happening. I think this is great. And stuff like just leading them to the conclusions, asking the questions, what could help you to do this? Yeah, maybe you want them to really be focused on their position, like we mentioned with this review. Well, where could you be? So you are just able to get to their backline more, or we wanted to do something else, like just try to make sure we're not as exposed to too many angles, yet not taking a lot of poke. We're just directing the question to that, what you could be doing so you get to the backline, or like what you could be doing, or like you can be even more direct. Yeah, say what you could be doing with your position. Yeah, make sure this is addressed. Yeah, so you focus them on one theme, and then they give you the answer. Yeah, maybe it's here, maybe it's there, and then you go based of that. Right. I'm also thinking another big part is just might be something what might be tough to do. It might take a lot of time. If you can share the value through giving resources, but if you create your own recordings of the concepts, for example, you really understand certain idea, explain it really well, and show the examples with the session. But if you also have the concept recording somewhere, I think this is great. A way to just for them to learn and see how it's working. A lot of the students, they're not only listening, they're also a lot of times visual learners. I think a lot of times I struggle with the visuals, to be honest, when I share the feedback. But if you're able to do that effectively, that's great. Save some examples, maybe show, okay, this is the concept I want you to grasp, and after that also show how the best players are doing something. For example, here I showed the example of one of my previous students, actually, Arthur. They are Eternity player now, pretty much one-tricking Magic, and now they're playing more characters as well, but I've been showing them how they're able to just stay on the flank and make sure they execute the combos. Mostly we've been focusing on positioning. I showed them this example, and this way it makes more clear for the student. It takes more time to save all the examples, but if you're able to do that in your free time, I think that's a great value. And you can use it anytime, to be honest. You can store all the examples in a Google Drive. I do have some folders. For example, for this character, I have like maybe 3 videos I could show, or maybe there also might be team concepts you can share if you're coaching a team, stuff like that. Ideally, you want to strive to have those examples too, I think. Well, maybe any questions about anything? You guys, I've been talking a lot, so yeah. Oh, Ace of Spades, that's one of my students too. Yeah. Yeah, they're doing pretty good currently, I think. Just getting there step by step. Yeah, so you guys, anything you want to ask a little bit more about the principles I shared, or
No, it's my first time like hearing this, so it's like all of this stuff makes a lot of sense, and I feel like you kind of do it, or like anyone that's gone through school kind of has already been doing this. Like school kind of teaches you all these kind of stuff. So now it's like cool seeing this in plain, like written English.
yeah. Yeah.
It's like this is why they do homework. This is why during class you have like in-class activities, and then after the session, it's kind of like more homework, I guess, too.
Yeah, exactly. If you also able to give them value, that's what we mentioned here, give them value between the sessions in a way with how you give them for homework in the school or like university. I think this is great. Like watch that something, watch X, read something. You can obviously show those examples of the pro play as well, kind of link them as well with the timestamp, so they're able to just go through that a little bit more and emphasize the concept. I think this is great. Yeah, give them value with the homework. Some coaches, they also create quizzes. I know there's one coach on Matterpie. His name is Chaos X. He's really good at this stuff. He's constantly creating quizzes and exercises for the students, where if he just went through the concept, then he is creating this small quiz, and the students, well, if they pass the quiz, that means, well, they kind of can check for understanding a little bit more. Are they understanding the concept? Yeah, or maybe there's something to tweak, just talk about a little bit more to make sure they share more knowledge with them, this sort of stuff. Yeah, you can always see, by the way, if you want to just search for Chaos. I think they are on Twitter. They're also on YouTube, doing great with posting quizzes on Twitter. I think, well, it's been 1 year ago. Right now, I not been following that much, but yeah, it's great if you're able to do that as well. I personally not creating a lot of quizzes. I just kind of give the quizzes during live session by asking the questions. Yeah, this is where you kind of have this in a way explain concept. And then after that, you give them questions, you show what good and bad looks like, and after that, you watch them do stuff. And we just want to do the live session with them, ideally, to just see, okay, like we worked on this positioning stuff, see how they implement it. Yeah, maybe there's something to tweak, maybe there's something they're not paying attention to. That's how I personally like to do the sessions. What if you explain concept, ask questions, leading, open, all of that. So
Yeah,
that's
because I
great stuff.
saw a PowerPoint that you did. I think it was at the previous session, the one with
Oh
like
yeah.
the blackboard kind of background, and it was similar to like Tell Show Watch. It was a little bit different though. But it was very similar with that. Like, you kind of like before you it's like you tell show, and then like you engage them,
Oh yeah.
and like
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
make
This is good.
sure. Yeah, and then you have them do it.
Yeah, yeah, watch them do it. Yeah, this is one of the biggest principles, and well, everywhere basically. They want to teach you something. Exactly, tell, show, watch them do that. That's the best thing you can do. I would also add kind of the other steps you can give, like homework or something, like little chat as well.
Like
After the
reinforce.
yeah,
Yeah.
reinforce something. So yeah, you just they also keep working with you. They keep sticking to the concepts, and they're not forgetting the stuff too. And yeah, it's gonna be really important. That's why with a lot of the students, we actually have those reviews between the sessions, like offline reviews. Sometimes we just
Mhm.
would go over the concept, and we do a lot of live. But after that, if we also have little offline review to just talk about the concept more, I think this is great. This is why I give those kind of more homework for them to think about as well, and just also see how they implementing stuff, to be honest. But yeah, it's just depends on your approach too. That's how I do stuff. I think it's great value, more consistent feedback in a way, and give them more consistent value this way. I think this is great.
Mhm.
Yeah, I actually have those points in here. Yeah, already written. I'll show. Yeah, but all of this connected. To be honest, it's just me taking the notes along the way. But yeah, this is great. Right.
I think as a newer coach too, something that I do is I like taking feedback from the students as well about myself. This not only lets you like have a
Oh,
better
that's good.
connection with the student themselves because next time you work with them, you might have a better idea of, for example, like some of my students like really directive approaches where I tell them what to do while they're playing.
Yeah.
Others like feedback after they die, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So I like getting feedback because that not only helps me, I guess, expand my own coaching, but it also allows me to better cater to the student as well. So that was just something that I was thinking in the back of my head.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I think definitely that's not mentioned here too. I think I personally, the way I was getting feedback, I really like automated things a little bit. That's why I have those coaching forms and everything. I actually kindly ask them to just fill that form out. Yeah, make sure you kind of maybe if you have anything to mention about what I could have improved on, or maybe anything to add, yeah, maybe anything to just think about doing the coaching as well, the other way I give feedback, anything to tweak, basically they can tell you it there. Ideally, if you have those forms created, this is such a time saver. I just want to tell you, like, see how many
Sure.
people, even in this form, I think it's been recent and there are already 400 responses. Imagine how hard it is to just write down all the question and just track all of that via Discord. I think so. If you have the form, I think this is great. Just more automated, really, and yeah, obviously also chat with them, Discord, and everything. But yeah, this is one of the things. If you do something frequently every day, then make sure this is happening. Oh, by the way, one of the ways for you to track the students, because I think it's hard to just keep everybody accountable if there are too many students. That's what I had the problem with too. Or maybe just in general, well, we have other responsibilities. Maybe create the spreadsheet where you talk to the student. Well, create a spreadsheet where you just see when you talked to the student, when you just approaching them. Yeah. For example, you can put the name in the spreadsheet. You can also just put the time on the last time you had chat with them. You just the date, and after that you can put the time when you wanted to chat with them again. Yeah, maybe in a week or maybe in 3 days after their tournament or something. You just have this in spreadsheet as well, so you'll not forget. I personally forget a lot of stuff, and especially hard if you just have a lot of students to keep a track on. You just do not
Yeah.
forget. Yeah, I think this is so
Completely. I'm in the same boat. Like dude, it's really bad because like when I first started off, I'm still pretty new to this. Like, how long would you guess I've been coaching Jafest? I'm curious.
I'm thinking, well, 2-3 years. Well, you mentioned that kind of, yeah. You
No, actually, I've been coaching for about 3 months.
Oh,
Or not?
okay. Well, I think
Yeah,
so.
I'm still
Okay.
fairly new to it, so
Okay.
it's. But I apply a lot of my school learning, like a lot of my social work aspects, and like it's very, very similar to psychology, like a lot of the coaching stuff.
Yeah.
And so like that's what I apply with my approach. But like when I started getting a lot of students, the issue that I had was like organization and
Yeah.
like being able to like I could check in when there was a couple of them, right? Like, hey, how's it been? How's it been the past couple of weeks, right? Now it's to the point where I've coached over 300 people, and I'm like, I have no idea how to like keep track of everybody and like I guess like check on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So
So I agree.
if you have this, yeah, if you have the spreadsheet, I think that's a great help for any of you guys later on. You will have that problem. I think just keep track on everything there. Like I personally have those tasks for me. I wake up, I chat, answer the questions, and then after that I go to the form and make sure I just send whatever the stuff I need to the student. Maybe there's something we wanted to chat about, like offline review. Maybe there's something that's just to remind me or to remind them about. Maybe they wanted to schedule a session but they forgot. Well, a lot of time happens. Okay, I can just make sure I keep track on that too. But the most important, how do you give value? Obviously, is just maybe some of the personal notes we can keep in mind as well, because sometimes, there's been one student, they in the military and they had problem with just focusing on a lot of stuff, and they used there was interesting example in Overwatch. They used the game as an exercise for them to just get better at making sure that they are focusing on 1-2 aspects of the game. Yeah, they're not. It's because what they've been describing is, for them when they play the game or like do regular exercises, has been like a fog in a way. Yeah, there's just they cannot understand what's going on because there are a lot of things and it's hard to keep focus. So I've been personally designing the more personal training for them and make sure we digest every concept, break down it a little bit more, and we've been using those questions, what, when, and where, and maybe breaking down it on the seams. And eventually they kind of told me that that's been a great help, to be honest. I don't know, well, obviously the coaching, I don't think you do the most of the work. The most of the work is done by the student, but if you're able to just give them a set of tools to just allow the student to improve, that's something that is great. That's your main point. And to be honest, I would personally emphasize the just students' development over anything else, over getting better in the game itself even, because if they're better humans overall, then they're also going to be better players too, if that makes sense. So if it's harming their ability to do something in real life, for example, we have that student, they've been really, I don't know, there's just been a few problems maybe in real life or something. They used a game like as escape, and they've been playing a lot. Yeah, you want to make sure you kind of address that. Well, it's not just you tell them, oh, you gotta stop behaving this. Yeah, just maybe show it in a way. I personally do this a lot of times. Problem on one side, solutions to another, and not necessarily it's that the problem it's something unfixable and big. Yeah, make sure it's easily solvable, but problem on one side, what kind of more helpful behavior you can choose, so it's starting solving for you. That's it. Yes, so making sure it's step-by-step approach, really. Like in psychology, yeah, I would agree. I personally been reading a lot of books because of some real life stuff. I really wanted to focus on psychology and just working with the teams as well. I found it really helpful. One of the biggest things for me, to be honest. It's been really helpful. So yeah, I like it. Okay. I think we mentioned it quite a lot. I don't know, there are a few notes and the other things which I just kind of before the session I wrote down about what we could be giving to students, but we mentioned pretty much everything today, to be honest, just except of kind of what to focus on for each role. But I don't think it's important to cover that much because a lot of you guys really high rank, already understand a lot of concepts. You understand just the small mechanical stuff, even which I personally a lot of the times I miss. So a lot of the mechanical things, smaller ones. But yeah, if you're able to just direct the student, give them tools, then they will answer the question just what they need to do by themselves. Even of course you need to have decent understanding of the game. That's why I've been personally playing to just get to 0.1%. That's it. I played for that time. I was like, yeah, it's enough. Okay. And I've been focusing more on development. It's just the other players. But obviously, just find a balance how you wanna approach it. Just keep in mind when you focusing more on the being a player, you're more biased though. That's what I wanted to say. You're more biased and you just kind of, you always feel like this is how the game's supposed to be played. But if you're a coach, you need to give kind
Yeah.
of different perspectives too. Nice.
Exactly. No, I agree. I'm like I said, I'm still kind of new to all this. I thought today I'd come. I know you've been doing this for many, many years, and I'm still, fairly new. A matter of fact, I'm new to being good at a video game at all. I played League. That was my main game. I have like 8,000 hours in League of Legends,
That's
and I was
insane.
fucking awful. I was like, I know. I was like top 5%, and I kind of sucked at it. And in Rivals, this is the first game I've ever climbed, and I'm like, wow, you know what? I'm kind of crazy, right? So now this season's been a bit more rough, honestly. I think solo queue this season as a DPS main is like little yikes. Last season I was able to solo queue up to like Celestial 1, just like one game away from Eternity, but
Yeah.
definitely a lot harder this season.
Yeah, 100%. I personally find I just have the lack of time. To be honest, I try to grind. Well, what kind of rank I got? I think it was GM2. I've been playing Thor non-stop. That's it. I just like
I
the
love Thor.
character. Yeah,
He's my go-to tank. Yeah, he's my go-to tank.
yeah. But
I'm a DPS main, but if I have to fill tank, it's Thor time.
yeah. I see it. Well, yeah. I think all of this is nice. A lot of the useful things, and you guys mentioned as well what you've been doing as well. This is great. Keep this up. Make sure we think about how to give value continuously. Maybe my question to you would be, it's just something you can do later on. What kind of concepts you've been able to implement in your next session? Yeah, or what you will be implementing in your next session. By the way, regarding that, I just quickly want to mention about that is your between chat, just between the sessions and maybe just right before the session, a lot of the times for me it's also just asking questions. Make sure I ask the question, what student been implementing, what they struggle with, what they've been trying to, well, what they do good currently as well, kind of 3 questions to just understand where they at to. But yeah, I just want to ask the same question to you, and you can answer that, to be honest. Maybe have your own notes, so if you're able to just focus on 1-2 things. If any of this is going to be useful, I'm not expecting just to make sure you implement all of that. Again, it's a lot about just my perspective on the things. Obviously, I've been also searching for what the other coaches do. I've been observing a lot of the coaches from eSport, even sports. I highly recommend it's a Doug Lemov. If you want to read it, Sports Coach. He is really, really good. I think it's explaining concepts, but yeah, I definitely think there are a lot of things.
Doug?
Yeah,
how are you spelling that?
Yeah, I will write down the name. Give me a second. Yeah, it's one of the best books, I think, about the coaching. It's The Coach's Guide to Teaching, and this is the author. I will give the name. Yeah. Oh, sorry. This is the name of the author. Give me 1 second. Yeah, here we go, second. And The Coach's Guide to Teaching, that's what I've been reading. Well, it's one of the latest books I've been reading, but there are also tons of others, but I think this is great. You just explain the coaching overall, and I think a lot of the stuff from sports, it can also be implemented in esports. That's why I'm excited to just structure all that information, give it to students too. This is kind of my goal in the long term. Make sure we have the material, also have all that structure, kind of just anybody who wants to take advantage of that, that's gonna be great.
Are you familiar with the term locus of control?
Well, sort of. It just depends on what you mean by that. I'm familiar, but yeah, can you explain what do you?
Yeah,
what's your
I
take?
implement that a lot in my coaching just for mentality to kind of promote accountability. Locus of control is pretty much in summary, it's the degree of impact that somebody believes they have over their life. For example,
Oh, yeah.
somebody might be
got it.
depressed because of government actions, and honestly, you can't really change government actions. That's something that's more of an external factor, right? But somebody with an internal locus of control might focus more on things that they have control of in their life. An example of that would be going to the gym. Going to the gym is a personal choice, or at least making effort to work out, right? And so people who have more of an internal locus of control and believe that they have more impact over their lives are people who have higher educational and just lifelong health outcomes. And that's something I like to teach students fairly early on as well, to kind of promote that accountability, et cetera, et cetera. I was just asking because I thought you'd find it interesting if you hadn't yet heard about the term.
Yeah. I know the term. I just been not looking through the lens of that. I understand the emphasis on just focusing on what's under our control. This has always been in my sessions. I kind of view it this way. What you mentioned about the government, for example, like the people, they have certain beliefs. What's
That's
affecting them.
matchmaking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is what it's been one of the first years. What I found out of this model, it's called thought model. You have certain thoughts, and then it's influencing you in a way that you're gonna have certain feelings afterwards. For example, let's just start with, first of all, we're facing the fact. Yeah, the fact can be my teammates throwing, for example. You have the certain beliefs and thoughts that maybe that they are really bad at the game, or like maybe you not doing something great or something. Yeah, the thoughts, beliefs, whatever. Maybe you can have the thoughts about the government is really bad because you live in that place, in that country, and then you get this feeling of frustration, and maybe there's demotivation, something, and this influences your actions, and you getting certain result. And that's what I think also in our last session we talked about, kind of you want to solve it step by step. You focus on the actions, and then think about the feelings which are more helpful to you, and the thoughts which will be more helpful as well, so it's not influencing your end result. Because I really think, I would agree, the thoughts are influencing the result you're getting. If you have that thought that you're not going to improve or something, and a lot of players, they struggle with, they maybe have certain thoughts which are demotivating, and then maybe think, oh, there's matchmaking which is really bad. I had a lot, well, there's been not a lot of sessions, but like 1%.
No, that's me.
Yeah, like
that's me right now, dude.
Yeah, well, this is fine. Yeah, but there's been like some percentage of the sessions where the student, they tell me, like this is really bad matchmaking, or like some other conspiracy theories. I've been there all the time. Yes, it's influencing, but I'm always asking that question: how much of influence it's gonna have over your performance? Yeah, comparing performance to all of this other stuff. Obviously, it's there sometimes it's not. But yeah, what there we can do. That's where they can get to answer, like what they can do with actions. Yeah, I mentioned, well, you can go to the gym, you can go do this and that. Maybe you can focus on certain ideas to work on, and I think this is great. Just be able to break it down. We can maybe talk about the thought model more, but I believe I also done the session. It's been on how to avoid autopilot, or something else like consistency. You have broke that down, to be honest. It's great. Maybe you can also, anyone interested. But yeah, this is exactly, I think it's really connected to some of the stuff from locus of control too. Yeah, I'm usually not exactly using not referencing to the terms. I just I I use this model, and then we go from there, kind of focus on our actions. What's under our control. What's under our control. That's how I would say. All right, I think this is great. Maybe any final questions? I know we're a little bit over time, but any final questions about anything? Just relationship tasks to students, anything related to that? What do you guys think?
I feel like it's pretty good.
Yeah? All right. I hope you guys like it. Again, if at least one of the things you're able to improve on later on, I think that's great. And it's been great to chat with you as well, because I also want to make sure I remind myself of the ideas. Maybe something I can improve. I personally also like to take a lot of notes, just see what I can be doing better here and there. I think is really good. Just to make sure go over the principles again for my future sessions, and make sure I will be able to implement it. But all right, you guys have any questions later, let me know. I'm sending the recording. I will just send the link to the notes, and then there's going to be a recording link too. It's going to be the link to my YouTube, so you'll be able to watch it. All right?
Perfect. Cool.
All right, then bye-bye, everyone, and good luck.
See you around. Have a good one.
Yeah.
Thank you.